Today, we're going to talk about how to network as an early stage founder. There's a lot of opportunities to network, there's a lot of encouragement to network, but it's often kind of a vague experience of how much is too much, where should I go, what should I do, what should I aim to get out of it. So, I want to give you a framework for approaching it to make sure that if you're going to go spend the time and money and, parking and all of that to go actually meet people and try to network, that you get something out of it. So let's dive right in. So first, why does it actually matter? Right? Well, the big thing is a lot of people view networking, and whether they view it because this is their opinion or they view it because they live it, they're looking for clout, right? They're looking to hold the mic. They're looking to be seen as someone important in the room instead of get something important out of the room, right? It's networking is inherently, a selfish act, meaning the reason you're doing it is to make money, right? Is to grow your business, is to progress your goals. But just because it starts from a selfish place, and again, we're not, plus or minusing and judging the selfish part of it, but just because it starts from there doesn't mean it has to end there. Doesn't mean you have to go in there and become the type of person that, again, takes and takes and takes. You can actually participate and give and make sure this is a beneficial relationship for everyone that you're engaging with. So if we take the clout out of the equation, then you're really networking for, again, broad buckets here, four core kind of types of people. One are customers. Now, depending on how early you are in the product building phase, or depending on kind of who you're selling to, some customers you have to meet at industry events and then you network with them for months and months and months, and then they convert. Makes total sense. Sometimes you're a company that services startups in addition to other companies, and you go to a startup networking event and you're there as a founder, but you end up finding a client. This is very common, right? Because startup founders, they're on average early adopters, right? They like to try stuff, they like to participate, they're willing to kind of try new things to solve their current problems. So customers, of course, is one, really valuable because of course it means more money and revenue for your business. But more than anything, it's the whole reason we have a business. So the more customers you can meet, the more people you can engage with there, you kind of need less and less of everything else. And yes, this is as your business gets bigger and you need to hire and you run into talent issues. And these are problems of successful businesses, not businesses that haven't been successful yet, right? Businesses that are idea stage, early revenue. Maybe they're just post product, but are still working on 100 different, areas of improvement. Customers reign supreme. Below that, we talk about partners, and partners are generic because partners could be people you do business development with that are referring you tons of people. Partners could be people or mentors in the community that are giving you advice on an issue or a bit of kind of guidance on how to do X, Y, and Z legal, whatever it might be. If you're in the capital raising sphere, meaning you're trying to raise your pre-seed round, your seed round, whatever, you can definitely meet investors, VCs, angel investors, general high net worth individuals. And then last but not least, talent. And talent is a mixed one because you're not going out there typically to hire, and it's hard to just kind of go to a random networking event and find a co-founder. But what I find is you can go and you can start to build relationships that mature into kind of deeper, more fulfilled, more collaborative experiences over time. This is the person you meet in January. Yeah, it's just some random dev who has a passion for UI, UX or whatever. But 3 months later, you end up hiring them to help with one little part of your product before it goes live. But you can't know that in January. You have to just kind of be open to networking, be open to what you need, not only now, but in the future. What you need as a random side project, some independent contractor, all the way to, do I need a co-founder? So as you can see, there's a whole range of things from service providers to part-time people to full-time people to co-founder level people to board level people. Talent is kind of everything, but no matter how much work you put on talent, right? Again, plus or minus, if you're hiring someone for product and you're not a product person and you're kind of collaborating to make the product better, yeah, it can be really meaningful. But generally speaking, every founder is their own head of product to start. So in the beginning, you don't really need more than you need, right? You're trying to solve problems, not build a full HR strategy in the early days. But if you can find people that are competent, find people that are helpful, find people that are at minimum motivating and encouraging, this is a good place to start again. Source sourcing that local talent. You do not need a brand name person to get to brand name results. You can build a brand over time. Early stage growth comes from who you know, who trusts you, and who will act, right? And when I say growth, this means everything from sales to getting investment, right? Because if you're a known, respectable, like let's just say again, you have tons of friends in your community that have a lot of respect for you and who you are, your integrity, blah, blah, blah. They trust you and they're willing to act. So to put this as an easy example, let's say you're raising 100 grand and you decide to try and get 10 checks of 10. Well, it's like, okay, well, who knows you? Because they have to know you beforehand. Because remember, your business is early. They're not investing in a successful startup. They're investing in an individual whose goal is to make a successful startup. This is, again, a little nuance, but it changes the mentality. So if they know you, and then you have this longer term relationship with them where they trust you, and then they will act because they have the money. They themselves are someone that in your relationship, right, the way that you view them, they are someone that takes action and is decisive. You don't want to go with your wishy-washy friends, right? In this example, you're making sure that it's not just I'm talking to someone interesting or I'm talking to someone that, is fun to chat with or has a high status. It's, does this person know me? And you can build that relationship. Does this person trust me? And trust can be built by both showing work that you've done for others and also doing work for the individual or, work, help, supporting, demonstrating expertise, whatever. And then who will act? And again, you can only go with your gut and learn discernment over time. But as you approach this whole networking piece, you'll find that there are 1,000 conversations you can and will have. And there's like 10 to 20 that really matter. That the people that eventually they know you, eventually they trust you, and eventually they will act, whether it's make an intro, write the check, give you critical feedback that they were otherwise hesitant to give you, introduce you to customers, right? The goal of networking is for you to be an input and there to be a material output. Here are my 3 golden rules broadly of all things networking. Give before you ask. This is the effort in not becoming the overly selfish person at the networking event, right? You've met this person. They're giving you their business card within 3 seconds of talking to you. They're pitching you their business and telling you they're raising capital and asking for introductions to capital before you even really know their name, right? These are people that they're like a black hole. They're just trying to take around them, right? And the nice thing is, because that is so much of the networking space, again, depending on the rooms that you're in, if you're the opposite of that and you go up and you ask people about themselves and you give both attention, you give a kind word, right? You participate in a way, you stand out so much by being normal, right? By actually just being a person and not being overly greedy, as silly as it sounds. It's like you can still sell someone or get a relationship or biz dev with people and start by being nice. You don't have to start with the hard sell, because the hard sell on average, from my experience in the relationship game, doesn't work. Maybe a hard sell works and is really efficient from a cold sales perspective. But in broader networking, where a lot of it is you're uncertain who you're talking to, because it's not just who they are, it's who they know. There are plenty of people at networking events that they themselves don't have an impressive resume, but they're really good friends with the organizer because they went to high school together or because they've been in the community for 5 years. And if you're rude to that guy, do you think the organizer is going to be your friend? Right? It's like, no, but you don't know because you're not giving, you're not engaging, you're not participating in the event that you're in. You're thinking, I need to network, instead of I need to be a person in this room and add value, and then I will get value in return. This is very much a reciprocity thing with the universe. Be specific and vague. I find that people, again, there's value in knowing what you want, but the problem is there's so many unknown unknowns, especially for first-time founders, that if you're too intentional, for lack of a better phrase, then you end up being focused just here and the answers are right here, or worse, they're way over here, right? But if you never give yourself room to turn, to test different things, then maybe you're just going to, for lack of a better phrase, stay ignorant. And that's not good. So an example of, vague and specific would be, I go to a networking event, I'm talking with someone, we start chatting about, what we are looking for or what we need for our businesses. And I would go, hey, I'm looking actually right now for intros to wellness VCs, people that are investing in health, in fitness, and specifically around the technology around them, blah, blah, blah. Now, this is a specific, shot, right? And the question is, the person I'm talking to, does this specificity trigger anything? Let's assume I have a good relationship with them, whether it's short term or long term. And they go, oh, I have a wellness VC buddy, or I have a buddy who does work in wellness. He might know. And if you have a good relationship, well, now they send a text real quick. But if you have an annoying relationship, then they just ignore you and they move on. Fair enough. The other kind of vague is, oh, well, I'm actually in the process of raising capital. And then they go, oh, well, what type of business are you in? Or, hey, who are you looking for? Or, hey, have you heard of this capital raising conference that's happening next week for, pre-seed startups, industry agnostic? Notice that if you would have just said, I'm looking for wellness VCs, and in the second scenario, the person didn't know, you're staring at a blank wall. Right? There's nothing, they can't help you. But if you just tell someone like, hey, I'm raising capital, or hey, I'm looking to raise in a few months, or hey, I'm looking to meet some, VCs in the Phoenix area. It's like, okay, well, now there's momentum. Now there's more hook points for someone to kind of latch into and start to help you. And the reality is you cannot predict this, right? You just have to try different things. So if you see me at a networking event, sometimes I give very specific answers. Other times I'm totally vague. I'm just throwing randomness to the wind because, again, you don't know who you're meeting. So you kind of just want to be open to trying different things, not expecting everything to work. The more you try, the more things will work. The less you try, the fewer shots you have at success. Always follow up. More often than not, founders, for lack of a better phrase, ghost themselves out of deals, right? They forget to respond to an email. They take way too long. They ignore an investor request that was said verbally, but wasn't included in their email. They miss these little tiny details, and attention to detail is critical. It's what investors look for. It's why you pay people around you, right? Imagine if your marketing person didn't have attention to detail. Typos everywhere. Imagine your lawyer didn't have attention to detail. Oh, you wanted the contract to be 1%? I thought you said 0.1%. Oopsie. It's like attention to detail and doing the follow-ups that, surround it is really important. And the nice thing is it's not really hard. It's really simple. It's really hard to do because, again, you have 1,000 distractions in your life. But I'm a big fan of the mindset of excuse your excuses. The idea is like, oh, I couldn't follow up with the VC because when I got home, my kids were doing this. It's like, okay, well, then follow up with everyone before you leave the event. Follow up with everybody in the car, right? Park on the side of the road, a block down the house, send me emails, and then pull up into your driveway. Because no matter what excuses you have, valid or invalid, if the work doesn't get done, the end. The work just didn't get done. And I would love to tell you it's going to be okay that the work doesn't get done and that, it's okay to not follow up and it's okay to miss this. It's not, right? Because everything you add to, this business effort builds it, and everything you don't add detracts from it. So if you don't go send those follow-ups, well, then you can't be surprised that opportunity isn't knocking. You remove the door. There's nothing to engage with. Where to network. So no surprise, in person and offline or online opportunities exist. So I just want to highlight a few of the ones that I always think about. One, founder-focused meetups. You can Google these in your city. There's plenty of them. There's Startup Grind is a big community. Techstars hosts events all across the US. Local co-working spaces are always hosting conferences or weekend events or dev boot camps or, there's startup people are event people because we know the value of you can do what you can do, but you can only do what you can do. At a certain point, you're going to need others. So startup people recognize just definitionally, and community builders within startups, that you need to build communities where founders and people that support founders can engage. Because if not, then the community has this friction and then things don't get built, or things get built far worse, far more expensive, etc. So go to these. Expect to meet very cringy, very pitchy, very like random people, but also realize that there are winners in the crowd, right? Always, because people that are going to be stars don't look like it day one. And you have to remember that, right? Elon Musk looked like a loser at some point, and people, again, he was smart, but at a random networking event, do you think he shined? It's like, probably not, right? In this example, you kind of have to be open, and this is where social skills come in. Who's really smart? Who's really honest? Who's really this? Who's really that? Part of it is, as a founder, you have to own sharpening this skill, because you're going to have to vet everybody from your co-founder to your lawyer to your mentors, etc. But this is also a place where you can start to get support from friends that are in sales, friends that are in, business development, people that do corporate stuff, where maybe even they can attend with you. They can show you the ropes, right? There's always a way to win. You can ask your friend, you can ask ChatGPT. And if you don't, and you, both of those are always on offer, right? And I would throw Google in there, but it's the same thing as ChatGPT, right? These are things you can do to make this experience, far better. Local VC events, pitches, or demo days. So local venture capital firms, or, you can throw angel groups in here as well, speaking broad spectrum. They're always hosting events, right? Because they want to show off their startups. They want to show off to their limited partners, their LPs. A lot of these events are paid, or some of these events are private, but there are plenty that are done publicly. They're called open demo days, right? Where they're having their startups that are either graduating from an accelerator or received investment or are part of a previous cohort are going there to, show what they've built and show how successful they are. And again, it's building the community and bringing VCs and founders and investors together, etc. Pitches are also very common. There's always pitches going on in your city, if not every month, I guarantee every quarter, where there are startups, there are other founders, there are investors, there are judges, there are prizes, cash or non-cash. And these things get a lot of people, right? And you can go meet some people there and build some relationships. So again, I'm not going to give you this is a place where we participate in our learning by Googling, right? I don't want to just spoon feed you every specific answer. I want to give you the step to get the answer, because if you're not willing to do the step, you're not going to learn how to sharpen the blade. And you're going to go, well, Aaron only showed me 3 events, so I don't know what other events. It's like, yeah, but if you Googled, you'd find 7 others, right? And you're just not doing that effort. And now what if one of those 7 others has your co-founder, has 3 of your investors? Like, you don't want to just retain, or you don't want to just use exactly what's provided. You want to try and shape it for what makes sense for you. So what events, and I throw co-working in here because co-working companies, right? Co-working studios where they have all of the different startups and different small businesses hang out. They're very focused on events, because of course they're trying to get more people to sign up and get more people to, be around the community. So these co-working spaces often host events, whether they're startup specific, small business, educational. You should try and check these out, because even if it's not directly startup, I guarantee more often than not, they're going to know where the startup event is, or they're going to have an intro or a referral or something cooking. And industry conferences. Industry conferences both applies to startups. And this is kind of a word of caution. A lot of startups get into I'm going to go to startup industry events. It's like, no, you need to go to those, sure, for startup things, but you need to go to industry events. Meaning, if you're a healthcare company, I want you at healthcare industry events, because one, your other startups are going to be there that you can learn from, do biz dev with, engage, right? But also because that's where your customer is. That's where potentially non-traditional angel investors may be, people that don't typically or wouldn't identify as an angel or a venture capital firm, but in fact, they're interested in writing a check in you because they have industry expertise and they understand what you're doing. And this doesn't mean you have to have a booth. This means you could just be walking around networking with people, because remember, everyone's at that conference to try and find ROI, trying to meet people, engage with people. Some are going to be focused purely on them. You got to give that a wash, but plenty are going to be open to networking, engaging, and, building over time. Online opportunity. Social media, this is a good one. It's just more of a long term, I find. And of course, there's always a level of randomness. But if you don't post, whether it's about startups, about your industry, about what you're building, I'm not saying you have to give every, trade secret away and be very upset when things go south. But if you don't post what you're doing, how can you expect someone to read your mind and engage? What if your LinkedIn of 500 people actually has two that would love to do something with you, but because you never made a post that, hey, I'm working on creating a healthcare startup that does X, Y, and Z. I'm the marketing person, and I'm looking for anybody that would give me a few tips on my biz dev side or on my product design. You ask for tips, and you end up with a co-founder. Right? These are things that you can't have happen unless you participate, unless you take that first step. And the first step's always bad, and the first step's always uncomfortable, and the first step may result in nothing. But the first step could also either be the first step on the path to greatness, or it could literally be that one shot and then it starts to work. It just gets the snowball moving. You don't know. But unless you reach your hand out, you cannot expect someone to reach their hand out to you. Startups require an active level of participation. They require risk and effort to be put, on risk all the time. You have to be the one to extend your hand. At least that's what I see successful founders doing. Niche groups. So niche groups take every, form and function. This is on social media, everything from like Facebook private groups, LinkedIn groups, Slack, channels of startup this, Discord communities of blah, blah, blah. Again, industry or startup specific, I don't really care. But participating, engaging. This doesn't mean you have to go crazy and be there 100 hours a day. But if you post something twice a week for 10 weeks, you've got 20 pieces of bait in the water. Something might bite. Like, that's a good sign. But if you don't, then again, you can't be surprised that nothing happens if you don't act. So now let's talk about how to engage and introduce. So I'm going to go through the kind of high level steps of how this whole thing works. So first we have the open. Direct questions and comment bait. I'm going to talk more about those, but you're engaging your audience, right? Next, we have building connection. This is where you find common ground. This is where you talk about the industry. You talk about maybe the stage you're at, the challenges. You build little personal connections. Oh, you like Lord of the Rings? Me too. Again, that's a little softer, and we'll talk about that later, but there's a real way to, engage with people. Next, we have a self-intro, because again, you have to assume they're not going to ask you about you, and you can always ask about them. That's what the building connection part is. But if they don't ask about you, you hit them, right? You have to try and give yourself. And again, this is one of those, you don't want to be pushy. You just want to kind of lean in a little bit, right? We don't need 45 degrees. We just need a little tilt that kind of shows that you're still there and you have something to say. Your self-intro is all about credentializing and explaining what you're doing right now. So it's, I'm someone that's legitimate doing something that's legitimate. Because if you have no background in your space and you're doing something, I don't believe that as much as if you give me a really good reason why you know everything you're doing, and then you tell me what you're doing. Again, easy example. People believe in medical startups where the person pitching it is wearing a white coat, right? Why? Anyone can create a medical thing, just like anybody could create a legal thing, but they have the credentials, they have the background, they have some relevant experience. And this doesn't mean you're credentialized. It just means that there's a rational statement that's true and verifiable that connects you to your problem, your action, the thing that you're doing. Identify value. This is all about identifying value between each other, right? Open-ended questions, specific questions. If they are interested, they're going to reciprocate. And this is, again, plus or minus social skills, because depending on how socially skilled you are, you can get a lot from people. And again, I'm not saying you don't give, but you can get a lot, or you can get very little, or you can get absolutely nothing. It's all about, again, the art of the deal. The exit. So when to exit the conversation, which is within an appropriate time and clean. And we'll talk more about what that means. But much like, again, everybody's washed dishes and you have a random knife there and you end up just slicing your finger. But that slice wasn't rough. That slice went through quick, because sharp cuts hurt less. Same thing goes with exiting a conversation. We want to be in, out, and we want to be gone. And again, while there's a little friction in that moment, the friction goes from friction to smooth very quick from a social perspective, way more than a very casual, slow fade out, which feels rough the whole way and doesn't really set you up for a second engagement that's productive. And last but not least, follow up. Clear next steps, ideally within 24 hours. I end up breaking this very often and I hate it. It's all about, again, you can imagine I'm doing biz dev and intros and relationships and all of these things. So been building more and more systems to manage this kind of follow up and make sure I'm doing things appropriately. But fundamentally, the sooner you can follow up, the better. Right. And the more that you can engage actively and show that person that they're not just a person you networked, but Steve with X, Y, and Z passion that now you want to pursue a conversation with. Again, the more real it is, the more real it can be. Right. Now we're going to break all of these down. The open. Know the audience and situation. Most rooms aren't a mystery. Meaning if you're going to the startup pitch day, you're going to meet early stage investors, you're going to meet VCs, you're going to meet some angels, you're going to meet some early stage founders, you're probably going to meet some developers, some service providers, there could be some lawyers. Okay, now we know what's going on. So we're kind of mentally primed for it. Does that mean that everybody in that room is going to fit that archetype? No. Is that 90% of the room? Probably yes. Am I now in a better mindset for what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it than if I was, for example, going to an industry conference where I'm going like, okay, what companies are going to be there? This is a data conference. Okay. And this is like a senior executives. Okay. So now I kind of have a better sense of I'm going to be introducing myself to senior execs, talking about data. How do I want to position myself and my business? You can see that so much of the confusion of what to say can actually be solved before you go if you just know who you're going to be talking to, and it kind of mentally primes you for that. So what I mentioned before were direct questions and comment bait. Direct questions are very simple. They're direct, right? And the nice thing is you're at a networking event, which means you can just ask anybody anything. Yes, certain groups might seem closed. You might see a little group of 3 or whatever, but again, fortune favors the bold. You can walk up to these groups, and I've had it done to me and I've done it to others, and you go, hi, can I interrupt and participate? And they're like, yeah, sure. What do you do? And you're like, Aaron, that's so awkward and cringy. And I go, yeah. Awkward and cringy don't mean it doesn't work. And we don't really care about those first 2 things if it works. This is, again, the classic founders go, but I don't know, I'm shy. It's like, okay, well, how far are you willing to go? You say you want to be a unicorn founder and you're scared to walk up to a group of 2 or 3 people and just say hi at an event that's designed for you to say hi. It's like, if this is going to be a problem, which it very well may be, we need to learn how to solve this problem, because there's going to be way bigger problems to solve later. And if we can't get over a little uncomfortability or, being a little uncomfortable, we're going to have a lot of friction. And that's just going to make doing something hard all the more harder, right? The next piece is comment bait. Comment bait, very simple. And you do this all the time with your friends. The problem is that when people go networking, they think that everything has to be a question that delivers like return. If I don't ask a good question, I shouldn't ask any question. When plus or minus, it's like the truth is you should just ask questions that are appropriate, which are very easy to be appropriate. And I'm going to give you examples that you can just copy paste. You can steal them and they will work. I promise you. Nice thing is they've been tested really thoroughly. Comment bait is all about when you're with your friend and you go hang out and you guys are sitting at a restaurant eating food and you go like, man, it's hot in this restaurant. And your friend goes, I know, right? It's like, are we sitting under like a hot spot? No one else is sweating. You didn't ask your friend a question. There was no reason for them to respond in, like, again, socially. You made a statement. You could have been talking to yourself. But notice, because you gave them bait, maybe they were thinking it, maybe they were wondering it, maybe they weren't at all. And now you made them conscious of it. They're like, hey, I do have sweat dripping down my forehead. Like, what the hell? Notice now you're starting to have a conversation. And this applies to anything. You walk into the networking event and imagine it's a full giant networking event packed and you're standing next to someone. I would just go, man, it's crazy busy in here, huh? And it's like, yeah, I threw a little which is like a question at the end, but I could have just said, it's crazy busy. And if that person has any level of social skills, they're going to go, this is a nightmare. Like what brings you here? Blah, blah, blah. And now we're in a dialogue where we just started. And all I did was go, wow, lots of people. People make this way harder than it needs to be, and understanding it can be very intimidating, right? It's not, I'm not saying that walking to an event where you don't know a lot and you don't know anybody and this is your first event. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's harder in the mind than it is in execution, because you do all of the things that would allow success at this event every day in your day-to-day life. You're just not doing it in context, and hopefully this lets you. Here's my direct question one. Again, steal this. It works. What brings you to this demo day? What brings you to the conference? What brings you to this startup event, this lovely Tuesday? Because what brings you here is asking, hey, what's your purpose? And they're going to respond, again, 95% of the time, it's, oh, I'm a VC and I've come to demo days all the time. Oh, I'm a community builder. What do? You're a startup, blah, blah, blah. And they just get right into helping you. Or it's like, oh, I'm a lawyer. One of my clients is presenting and, I'm always here to help out and meet other potential clients. What are you working on? What brings you to this is always appropriate. Now, maybe, again, if you're there for a speaker, you should know who the speaker is. And if you bump into them at the drinks table, you don't go, oh, what brings you to this? Although sometimes that works as well and can be quite charming, but you want to make sure you're doing everything in context, right? But what brings you to this? Golden. Direct question two. I ask this again. You will hear me if you ever meet me in the wild at some networking event. You will hear me say this. It's oh, what are you currently working towards? What's your goal? What's exciting? Are you looking for? Do you have any plans for the end of the year? And for me, if it's like beginning of the year, I go like, what's your goal for this year? If it's at the end of the year, I go, oh, what are you guys looking forward to next year? Again, this is that little art meets science. You add a little context to it. And hey, it's like we're at the end of the year. Let me ask about what they're doing next year, not ask them to give me their annual report, right? The thing that this is nice about is it gives them an opportunity to be excited, to show something that they want, or, oh, we're going to be launching our product next year, or, oh, we're actually closing our fund in January and going to be investing in startups, blah, blah, blah. That opens the door for you to ask follow-ups, for them to ask follow-ups. But notice you're not starting on a topic that's boring, because inherently you're asking them something that they care about. So as long as you force yourself to be interested, which means pleasant face and continued questions, right? That's great. You're starting on a positive note already, right? Amazing. Comment bait one. And again, I forgot that this is the text that I put here. So hilarious that was the example I used earlier, but it's true. Statements about the room. Again, I used to network at events all over. Dark rooms, big rooms, small rooms, giant ceilings, fancy people, not fancy. And you just walk in and you can say something so obvious, where I walked into a WeWork one time and I was like, man, like, why is 20% of this a bar? Like, it's got matcha everywhere. And like some random girl next to me started laughing because she was a startup founder just like me. And she goes, I haven't been in WeWork in forever. I didn't realize how much it had changed. And bam, a little conversation happened, right? But you don't do these things if you're not willing to take that leap. And mind you, I could have said like, man, what's going on with WeWork? They've changed all the design around here. It looks crazy. And she could have just made a face and walked away. She could have gone like, I have to go, or I'm busy, or just ignored me completely. But because I was willing to try, I extended the hand. And yeah, it could have been slapped away, but who the hell cares? It's free. So again, comments about the situation, things you notice, right? This is one of those, you want to be delicate because you don't want to walk up to somebody like some woman and be like, hey, nice heel. It's like, no, not good. Have I? Absolutely. For example, this is a fun little event. I went to a Halloween party and it was at this, what is it? Where they dance sexy, but it's not a strip club, like boudoir. No, it's a French thing. I'm forgetting the name of it. I'm sure someone will yell at me in the comments, but long story short, we went to like this Halloween kind of style event and I saw this dude in a suit and he had on Allbirds. And again, dude in a suit, Allbirds. Notice again, I'm being cautious of who I'm talking to. I go, hey, nice shoes. That was it. And do you know what Mr. Allbirds told me? He goes, oh man, thanks. We invested in them, blah, blah, blah. I'm a VC. I do this, I do that. And blah, 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 blah. Just going. I said, hey, nice shoes. People make it complicated. And again, certain situations can be very complicated. Most are not. Most are just you owning the outcome a bit and saying something and participating. And you may try, or you will try, and you will fail. But along with will fail, you will succeed if you just keep doing it over and over and over. One more example, just for the sake of it, and I've used this 100 times, where I'm sitting there, there's empty chairs all around me because we're waiting for like some speaker or someone that's going to come present. People sit in my row or right behind my row or right in front. And guess what? At a certain point, people are looking around, they do whatever, eye contact, and I go, I hope the speaker's good. Done. Oh, me too. Oh, have you attended one of these events before? Oh, this is our first time here. Hey, have you met Steven? Again, I wish it were more complicated. It is not. This is just following the basics, properly. And then again, you can totally mess it up after that and get super greedy and ask 100 things. Be a person, right? Which means give a little, ask a little, give a little, ask a little. And the more you give, the more you ask. And then it's like kind of like getting a bank, like a loan from the bank. You start with a little, and then again, your credit limit goes up and up and up as you prove credit worthiness. Same thing happens with people that you meet at events. Next, building connection. So you'll hear me say hooks very often, hooks or hook points or whatever. It's just a mental framework that I have. But really, I'm looking for personal and professional hooks. So as an example, that last story I just told about the VC wearing Allbirds, I owned Allbirds. So that's why I knew what those shoes were, right? And so when I complimented it and said, hey, nice shoes, if he would have been like, oh, do you know these? If I didn't know anything about the company, I could have still said, no, but they look really cool, or they look fresh. I've never seen them before. But I was like, oh yeah, I have a pair. I wear those all the time. They're my day-to-day kind of running about shoes. He goes, oh, they're the best, blah, blah, blah. Hooked, right? Hook is what happens when you're interested. And kind of the easy example that I use to give this, what does a hook mean? You ever been talking with someone anywhere, at a family function, professional event, wherever, and it's boring, 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 boring. And then at some point they randomly just say something like, I like Lord of the Rings, or it's like, I like startups, or it's like, I'm in healthcare. And all of a sudden your attention kind of goes, hey, it's like a deer hearing a twig snap. You're like, hey, I like that too. And I'm engaged, and I'm this and I'm that. I'll give you an easy one that happens to me all the time. People are always screen sharing with me. And so they'll screen share and they share their entire thing. So I see their whole desktop. Do you know how many times I've seen people play the same video game as me, or watch anime, or do one of 100 other things I do? And I go, hey, not to be creepy, but I saw that you do this. Like, that's really cool. I'm into that as well. And then all of a sudden, excitement, right? These are little things that everything can be a hook point. A hook point a hook is defined as what interests, right? Has to be genuine interest, which means emotion, which means excitement, which means something you can bond over. And bonding could just be, they bring up hiking and you go like, I've been wanting to get into hiking. And maybe it's a lie, but then they go like, really? And you're like, yeah. Like after that answer of really, it's like, oh yeah, for sure. Couldn't think of anything I'd rather do more. And now you're talking about fucking 8 national forests. And it's like, great, cool. I love it. You're building a connection. Word of caution. You don't want to just build personal connection, because then they don't know about you. The best case is you build professional connections, and then you kind of supplement them with personal, right? It's like, I really respect this lawyer, and we happen to have a few of the same common interests. Double respect. That's very different than your friends, right? How many of your friends do you have a lot in common with, but you would not trust them professionally? We need the inverse. We need someone that we trust professionally and look at, a little bit as a friend, or at least someone pleasant, friendly, sociable. Again, lawyers know they're doing business, that they're networking with 1,000 people. That doesn't mean they can't be friendly when they do it. Same thing applies to you. How do you do this? Frankly, it's done by asking questions and touching on multiple topics when answering. That second piece is the critical one. A lot of people, when they explain a topic, they will stay on a one-track point. As an example, if they're talking about their company and data, they just keep talking about data, instead of saying, oh, I'm an early stage founder from Arizona building a software startup in data that touches healthcare, whatever. One of those, the first version, only covered one topic. And if that person isn't into data, there's no follow-ups available. The second one gave 5 different things that I could go, hey, I'm from Arizona, or hey, my uncle's from over there, or hey, this, or hey, that. And now, hook. You're getting them. Amazing. Value add is what we're aiming for. right? And this is important because there's a temptation when you go to networking events to you go often enough, or you start going and you start becoming friendly with people, and it ends up being your friends. And friends are great, and you make them. I have a lot of friends that started as like people I was networking with, but we either don't have anything we can do together or what have you, but we still have common interests. We can be open to the possibilities. But the idea is when we're looking for people, we're trying to suss in our head, is this a person that I can add value to, or they can add value to me? And the reason that's an or, not an and, is because just because you help them and they can't help you doesn't mean their friend can't. There are a lot of people that help me, and then I go call in a favor and I go, hey, I can't help this person, but I think you can help them. Can you help this new guy I met with X, Y, and Z? And because of the relationship with the other person, and because of X, Y, and Z I'm doing with them, you see the art of business development at work, where I'm trying to not only bring value and give value, but in reciprocity, look after yourself, look after myself, and capture value. You do not want to, this is not a charity, which means it has to flow both ways. It cannot be giving infinitely into the void. There has to be a response. If there isn't, it's not about, you're trying to get a specific ROI, but you're also not trying to throw money into a bottomless well. You want to make sure, hey, I don't need to get a lot back. I don't need to get everything back, because again, you're early and you're starting. But if you're not getting anything back, then you should probably invest your time elsewhere. Other events, other people, etc. Self-intro. Let's talk about how to do it simply, how to do it easily, how to do it effectively. The easiest one that I do, and I do this, again, variables, which means you can sub things out, you can mix and match the order. I don't care about any of that. I have a background or interest in A. I'm building X, which does Y for Z. So it's like, I'll give you an easy example. We'll use a chatbot software, right? So I have a background in healthcare products, and I'm building a chatbot which helps people get answers to their common medical questions easily when they're in remote areas, for people in remote areas. Perfect. So it's like, oh, healthcare person, they're building this chatbot thing. So now I understand what the business is, what it does. Oh, they're helping these people in like hard to reach areas get access to this information. I have, again, look at all those hooks. I have this full picture in 2 sentences of who I am. And the person that I'm talking to can totally reject it, meaning they ask no questions or they just go straight into them. But if anything that I said does interest them, now they can bite. Now they can get hooked, and now we can start to engage. And similarly, again, notice this comes after building connection, which means I'm assuming you're asking them about them. I'm encouraging you, shall I say, to ask them about them first. One of my favorite little biz dev strategies, it's a little hack. This I didn't put in the pres, but I'm gonna give you this now. And it does work, and it is genuine, but you just have to do it properly, is often I'll get into biz dev combos at networking events, and I'll just keep talking to them. I'll just keep asking question after question after question. If the relationship is good, right, and they're interested, to the point where they haven't even asked me my name, because I built up so much goodwill, because someone who they're so engaged and they're talking about what they want to talk about, and they go, oh my God, I haven't even asked you for your name. And I go, oh, like, don't worry about it. Like, my name's Aaron. And they're like, well, what do you do? And I go, oh, I help startups and I do X, Y, and Z. I have a friend that I want to introduce you to. That little pocket of I said what I wanted, they immediately gave me something. That was the fulfillment of demand. That was me being nice. And again, I'm genuine. I wasn't expecting that to happen, but I just noticed this happened after so long, because I'm like, I'm just going to be interested in what they have to say and keep learning and learning. And then eventually, again, reciprocity kicks in on their side, where they almost feel guilty. Like, hey, I'm talking so much and this person's engaging with so much of what I have to say. Like, can I do something for them? I should ask them. I should help them. Bam. And this isn't social manipulation, non-social manipulation, whatever. What I think about is it a fair transaction? Is it something where you're actually both getting something out of it? If all you're doing is going out there to manipulate, like, that's not good. But if you're going out there with the goal of building relationships and trying to fairly transact, trying to give and trying to get, this is just a strategy. This is just the way it works, right? And you can do it with good intentions. You can do it with bad intentions. I do it to build things. I want to build technology, make money, and hang out. Like, I don't try to overcomplicate things. So all of this is sales, marketing, biz dev, capital raising. I'm utility driven. So I would encourage you to be the same. Remember, if you don't say it, they don't know it. A lot of founders are assured of their own greatness, right? Their reputation, they believe, should precede them, and it does not, unfortunately. So this is one of those things where you really have to recognize, if I don't mention that I'm a nationally, accredited microbiologist, blah, 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 they're not going to know, right? And it doesn't mean you have to go out there and like flex all 17 degrees you have and give them some alphabet soup of acronyms that they don't know. But there's a difference. Again, the doctor says he's a doctor versus going like, oh, I'm building a healthcare startup. It's like, oh, I'm a concierge physician and I'm working on building a company that does X, Y, and Z. It's a pleasure to meet you. It's like, oh, fancy. Now credentialized doctor, concierge, startups, blah, blah, blah. It's like, this is good. This is great. Do not assume it. Always say it. And this is the balance where you don't want to say and talk for 20 minutes, but you want to make sure that if you don't say, we're raising capital, we're in this industry, I'm looking for a co-founder, we just launched our product. If you don't say these things, do not expect them to just try and they're not going to try and pull it out of you. You want them to ask you one little question and you answer it, but then you throw 4 other things in there quickly, concisely, and then you get engaged with. Everyone there is for themselves, right? This is my whole point of everyone being selfish. But there's an old framework of, how do you get someone to do something that you want them to do? The answer is, get them to want to do it as well. Like, if they want to do it for themselves anyway, and then you just give them a little push, well, all of a sudden, their self-desire becomes an output of yours. The same thing happens here. If a VC, let's give the easiest example, VCs are looking to invest in high-growth startups. You're a high-growth startup. That's aligning interests. That is the most simple, clear example. But there's other examples of aligning interests. Like, oh, you as another founder that I know want to meet VCs that I might know, but you also have connections that I might want to have. Maybe we trade, right? You're trying to find ways to go, what does the person I'm talking to want? What do I want? And is there a bridge in between? And the bridge doesn't have to be straight. It might take 7 different turns. We're in the early stage startup mode. We're scrappy. We're hungry. We need to do everything to get progress, on the board. And if that means taking 7 extra steps, so be it. Identify value. Again, you're going to see this in a lot of places because I just try to use, I have a lot of frameworks, but they're all just one framework fundamentally. Open-ended and specific questions. If they're interested, they will reciprocate, meaning you ask them specifically about their experience in general. Like, oh, is this your first startup? Or how are you guys tackling data? Or have you guys considered raising money? And how did your last round go? And again, you want to be appropriate with your questions, and appropriate is, for the audience to decide. But this is a big one of social skills, meaning you all know someone who, and for me, it's my mom, can go to any store and make a friend, can go to any place and get everyone's life story in 20 minutes, whether or not they asked for it, right? Whether this is innate, whether this is social skills, right? Who knows? But I tend to lean more on the social skills side of whether it's the way you engage, the way your face, avoid RBF as it were. But the way that you engage with these people and people broadly can make them more or less likely to be honest with you. I'm not saying they're vulnerable and sharing their life or whatever at the startup event, but be candid about what they're doing. A lot of people are reserved because they don't want to say it or they're nervous or whatever. But if you give them a place of comfort, a place where you ask open-ended questions and express interest, or ask specific questions and look at them when they're talking, not just constantly dart to the next person that you want to see, you might learn something interesting and you might identify some real value. The big question that I'm always asking myself, because I start with a give mentality. It is an unfair, unreasonable assumption of mine that I should let somebody else give something to me first before I give them something. that would be a nice random miracle in my mind. But if I go out there and give a bunch and then I get a bunch, that is me taking, luck into my own hands, as it were. And I also feel better about it because then I'm not just a moocher. I'm someone that gave a lot. And then whenever I get something back, it's like, yay, I got something back. That's awesome. So how can I give value? Remember, value is not just you invest in their company. It could be a lawyer they want to know, you meet a random person they want to know, of an event they want to know of. The big one that I used to do all the time, because I know that lawyers, just like doctors, there's good lawyers, there's bad lawyers, there's good doctors, there's bad doctors, there's good police, there's bad police. There's no monoliths in the world, right? Everyone has their own little unique thing. But I met so many bad lawyers that I knew, hey, if I find a good lawyer, I should make sure that they get a lot of business. So I'd go to startup events and I meet founders all the time. They're like, oh, I'm going to be launching my capital raise in a couple of weeks. And I go, oh, that's awesome. Congratulations. Huge. Do you have a lawyer? Like you got someone to review all your docs? And they're like, I mean, my buddy who does like real estate law. And I just resist the urge, because it's like, this is something that you think could be worth $1 billion. And you want your buddy that sells real estate part-time and other things, that can't be discussed here part-time as well. That's who you're trusting with this business. Like, are you insane? Respectfully, find a good lawyer, right? So for me, once I found a good one, I would go like, hey, respectfully, love your buddy. Sure, he's cool. No. Can I introduce you to a lawyer that I've got a lot of value from? And again, you can just have a chat and do whatever. And more often than not, it wasn't even me pushing a lawyer. They would always be like, I would love to talk to a startup professional. I'd love this. I'd love that. Lawyers can't pay referral fees. I never got any money from making those referrals, but did I add value to the customer? Yes. Did some of those customers or some of those people 6 months from then hire me? Absolutely. Some referred me people. Some just became friends. I don't care. I'm just looking for that value, and I'm open to all forms of value. So work for me. Where can they add value to you? Now, this is a two-part where, of course, you want them to like think and be an active participant in thinking through how they can make intros or do this. But very often they'll ask, what are you looking for? Or how can I help you? How can I do something for you? And if you don't have specific or general asks prepared, it's hard to come up with them on the spot, right? An example of a general one would be, hey, we're going to be raising our pre-seed round in a couple months. Do you know of any events or conferences or things that we should attend that would have investors for us? In that general question, they could give you 3 events, or they might go, hey, my buddy is actually an investor. Let me see if he'll give you guys some feedback, a chat. Would you be open to that? Amazing. Another specific could be, oh, we're actually looking to meet, again, I was at a random networking event one time, and a guy was like, I'm looking to meet an NBA player. And a dude in the room goes, oh, my wife and this NBA player, their wives are friends. Like, we hang out at their house all the time. I can introduce you. He's nice. This guy was very specific. And notice, he could have been so wrong, because someone in the crowd could have been like, oh, well, my wife's friends with an NHL player. That probably doesn't count. And it's like, that would have been the end. So he went specific. He said NBA. He got NBA. Could have been a totally different outcome. But notice this balance of, what you're looking for. Doesn't mean you can't use a little social skills and adapt to things as they're happening and be like, hey, maybe I should ask this person about that. Great. But I want some intention behind it, not just a random like, oh, I don't know, some intros would help. It's like, intros to who, for what? Like, help them help you. One-sided is fine to start. You heard me say this before. You just don't want to give into a void. You want to make sure that you're giving to people that care, giving to people that engage, giving to people that want to give back to you. Even if the give is just a thank you to start, if you're giving help to people and they're not even saying thanks, don't expect them to say thanks later if they're not saying thanks to start. Pretty simple, but you'd be surprised. The exit. Within an appropriate amount of time and clean. This was that whole sharp cuts hurt less. A lot of people hesitate to leave a networking conversation, whether it's after a minute or 10 minutes, and it ends up creating a weird kind of friction and maybe leaving things in a bad place where they could have been in a good place. This is the whole, end the movie or, end the conversation at the highest point, and then they always want more of it in that way. So in this way, I want to give you some very simple, clear examples of how you exit. And I am less concerned with how you do it, although again, there's nuance here, but more that you do it, because you get more from learning how to do it than anything else. So here's an example. I meet someone, I'm chatting with them. Let's say we're talking for like 5 or 10 minutes and we're doing whatever. I would genuinely hit them with, hey, like, again, they just finish a sentence. I don't like interrupt them. I let them finish whatever they're saying. And even if I could ask a follow-up, like let's assume they finish something and are waiting for me to ask a question, I just immediate handshake out. I go, hey, it was a pleasure to meet you. I'm going to do a little lap around the event. Thanks for taking the time to chat. I'll be sure to follow up. Right there, even if they were about to start talking and say another thing, your confidence and your direction of, hey, it was a pleasure to meet. I'm going to go walk around the event. I would love to follow up with you. That gives them comfort. It's like a movie ending well, where all the little like plot lines were solved and you go like, ah, okay, I feel good. And then they get to comfortably turn and start looking and engaging for others. It's not some like, oh, and then they just stop talking. And then eventually it's a little silent between you and no one knows what to say. And then you go like, thanks for chatting. Weak, not necessary. And it doesn't need to be weak. And the strength that you give shows a polish, shows a professionalism. It shows that you're someone that maybe should be followed up with, someone that should be taken seriously. It's good. Good handshake. Basic of a good handshake is very simple. You match their strength and you do not dead fish. It's just very simple. Connect. And if they vice you, you vice back, right? You just meet them in the middle, squeeze as hard as you can if you have to. If they're very gentle, right? Often you meet people that, for example, don't go to the gym 100 times a week. So when they give you a very gentle little squeeze, do not vice them. You give them a little gentle squeeze back, equal and opposite, and then you call it a day, right? I wish I didn't have to explain this. I do, because you're going to go to networking events and someone's going to hand you a dead fish and it feels gross. It feels like you don't respect them. I'm going to be honest. When someone hands you a dead fish hand, you just, the immediate, yuck. I'm just thinking, I don't want to do anything with you, talk business, network. It's not the right vibe. Right. And again, I'm one person, maybe my particularities are weird, but whatever. Example 2, very simple. I'm going to grab a drink. It was a pleasure talking. Again, this idea of direction of, oh, hey, that's the drink thing. Hey, I'm going to go grab a drink. Really appreciate, time to chat. Let's chat more soon. Gone. These little things, just ending the conversation, can mean so much for 2 reasons. One, you don't get trapped in conversations too long. You're at a networking event. The goal is to talk to ideally more than one person and to work the room, which means have at least, again, 1, 3, 5, 10 convos. If you're talking to 100 people a night, you're not really talking to anybody. You're just like shaking hands and you're basically doing like a presidential run, right? If you're talking to one person, bad. Talking to 100 people, bad. If you talk to 2, 3, 5, 10, pretty good. And you invest the right amount of time. And again, you can just do simple math. If you're talking to 10 people on an average 5 to 10 minutes, that's an hour to, 2 hours of talking approximately. That's a long event, right? Because you're not just talking straight. You're getting a drink, you're going to the bathroom, you're checking your phone, you're bumping into new people, you're saying hi to old people. There's a lot of time that can pass. So you don't have time to be having 20-minute chats with randoms that go nowhere. You need to have 5, 10-minute chats and move it along, because even if you're really interested in what that person has to say, they probably want to meet other people. They probably want to do other stuff. And if you hold them hostage, it can, again, turn something sour, something that was going really well into, they were just really annoying at the end. It's like, you didn't have to end it like that if you just had a bit more polish. The follow-up. So really, it's all about staying focused and with clear next steps within 24 hours. So focused means you're not writing 10 paragraphs. Clear next steps means you know what's going on. And within 24 hours means punctual. So it's like, let's say I met a lawyer and the lawyer was like, I have some clients I want to introduce to you, if you have time. Right, as an example, I'd go, oh, hey, John, or hey, Sarah, it was a pleasure meeting at the networking event last night. I remember you mentioned that you had a few clients you wanted to introduce to me. Happy to make myself available. Here's my Calendly. If any of your clients want to book directly, or I'm happy to get on the phone with you and them, whatever works best, period. Let me know when you'd like to chat next. Aaron. Done. Now, notice I could have even been more direct, more aggressive with that, but the person's offering me leads, so I decided to be a little softer. Now, if John or Sarah or Samantha or whoever doesn't respond in 1, 2, 3 days, then I follow up. Here is a critical, I didn't write it down, but I should have, note. Some people don't respond to your message the first time intentionally. People I know that are very important, and again, important is relative, but let's just say that their inbox has quite a few messages, put it like that. They see them all, but they know that a lot of people just send them random blasts or send one little thing, and they're not really that hungry. And then they wait for the second message, because the second message is very simple. That same lawyer, hey, sent you a message before on Thursday, would love to follow up. Hope all's going well. Wanted to bring this to the top of your inbox. Bam. And the lawyer goes, this guy's legitimate. This guy knows follow-ups. This guy doesn't lose things. Now I'll introduce him to my clients. Is this the best way of doing things? I don't know. But I'm not here to know. I'm here to tell you how it is and how to navigate it. And I will tell you that I've met more than one person that does this, and it's not two people that do this, right? So always be on the offensive and assume that they may not have seen your message. And if they have, they've got ADD, 3 kids, 5 jobs, and they don't remember. Remind them politely, but remind them. Ask clear next steps, even if you're just thanking for the time, right? And it doesn't have to be anything more than if you met the speaker, right? Maybe you want to follow up with them in 6 months when something is happening, in which case it's hey, thank you for the great talk last night. Really learned a lot. Specifically, this point we're going to implement on our side. I would love to follow up with you in a few months when I have X, Y, and Z ready. Or in a few months, I'm going to have an exciting update I'd love to share with you, or this or that. Notice you're just ending it in a clean way. Professionalism, a little formality, a little bit of specificity, they go a long way because of how infrequently it actually happens in the real world. My rules, some extra kind of high level rules that I'm always thinking through. Some come from the back, but these are things that are just always front of mind. Find what hooks. If my business model hooks, like let's say my business is half crypto, half, Web 2. If I get into the conversation and they're talking about crypto, we're talking about crypto, baby. I don't even want to talk about Web 2, right? To hell with it. Not because it doesn't matter, not because I'm suddenly anti it, but because they're not interested in that. So don't try and crowbar your interest into their head. Listen to their interest, right? So listen to what hooks, personally, professionally, all the things. Beware the moocher. This is both reflective, meaning do not become the moocher, the person that just takes and wants and takes and never gives anything. Not a thank you, not a donation to the startup fund drive, not a kind word, not an intro to someone random in the community. Like, do not be that, and also be mindful of that. People want everyone to be nice and amazing and sweet and all that stuff. And a lot of people are, but also a lot isn't all, which means you're going to meet some people at events that, for lack of a better phrase, kind of suck, right? They're selfish, they're annoying, they're arrogant, they're full of pride. They have no humility. They think they know more than they do. And to anybody who with even like one eye working, and you can see they don't, right? This is one of those. It's not obvious to them, though. They don't know they're coming off like this. And do you know if you're coming off like this, right? Little things can change everything. So if you can always ask your friends, your contacts, different people to be honest with you and help kind of coach you through this. But you want to be a giver, not a moocher. When I'm at events, I'm kind of mentally, no matter what, trying to showcase these 3 things, because these are the things that I think people on average respond the best to at events. One is expertise. You got to be an expert, and an expert doesn't mean you have 10 degrees. An expert means you know what the hell you're talking about, right? You can say it confidently. You know the acronyms, you know the little nuances, like you know your business, your industry, your whatever. And if you don't, work to know more of it. Confidence. Confidence is not just standing big and tall with, chest held out and shoulders back. Confidence is the right type of confidence, which means you know what you know and you know what you don't know. And you also know there are plenty of things that you don't even know that you don't know, right? There's levels to this. So when I think of confidence, I think of the right confidence. As an example, someone, let's say, and I have this situation happen with either clients or my own businesses. They're like, Aaron, you're going to launch this business. Like, what do you think? And I go, I'll give you an example answer. I'd be like, oh, I'm feeling reasonably confident. Like, we've got good demand. We feel good about the product status. We like our competitive advantage versus, the competitors. I feel that we stand a really good chance of being a known market name. And I'm excited. This year, our goals, the first 100 customers. And then from there, it's really a question about how quickly we can scale, how much capital we have available. But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling strong. Now, you'll notice that's a little drawn out of an answer, but the energy it gives off is not a founder that's like, oh, we're going to be $1 billion company at the end of this year. And, oh, we're going to raise 20 million. It sounds like someone that's going to do a real hard job well, right? It's like, oh, this is going to be a lot of work to lay this railroad, but it's going to get done. It's like, yes. I want like a railroad worker mentality and confidence, because there's a humility that comes with that as well, right? Where you go like, hey, we're aiming for this 100. We're aiming for this. Our goal is that. We feel good. Like, we are this. But it's not we're definitely this, or it's not giving it with like a sneer. And again, you think like, oh, Aaron, I don't talk like that. You might come off like that, especially if you don't know it. This is where, again, being willing to be wrong, willing to learn is very helpful, and adaptable. A lot of founders come in one way and they want to leave one way, meaning they think their business is one thing. They think their customer is one thing. They think their value is one thing. They think this event is one thing, instead of being open to vague. And I know it's not fun. We all want to have perfectly defined little boxes. Trust me, I love a bit of structure. But the truth is, the best structure in this type of situation is a lack of structure, is the willingness to listen. The easy example and adaptable would be, I'll use the example from What Hooks, but it's like, I have a half Web3, half Web2 business, and I'm talking to an investor, and I just was really perfecting my Web2 pitch, and they're really passionate about Web3. I'm going to adapt. I'm going to figure it out live, how to pitch my product with more of a Web3 tint, not changing it, not changing the offering, not changing this, but adapting to the situation to make sure my message, my experience, my conversation is the best that it can be. And again, these are all an effort. So when I see these, and hopefully when I give these off, it gives off the right image of someone who is competent, someone who is appropriately confident, and someone that is adaptable to situations, be they easy, hard, or impossible. How can you lose with that? Right? Don't you want that in your CEO and your marketer and your lawyer and your whatever? Like, you want these qualities. If you don't, I would question what other qualities you'd rather sub in. Not every conversation will be fun or value add. There are some people that are going to be mean to you. I'm just going to tell you that right now. They're going to be rude. They're going to be dismissive. They're going to tell you that you're too confident. And sometimes they're right. They're going to tell you that your product doesn't make sense, that they're an industry expert, that they're the CEO of Healthcare Inc. and they know blah, 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 blah. They don't know nothing about nothing, right? Trust me. I've met people with degrees and statuses that you can't imagine, and they don't know nothing about nothing. This is the part where you have to be humble enough to go, if someone calls you arrogant, you should hear it and go like, okay, how could I be coming off arrogant? Even if you're not internally arrogant, maybe there's part of what you're doing to message arrogance, or maybe just this one person is extra sensitive to arrogance, as an example. That's okay. But if you're not willing to hear it, that's kind of a lack of, humility. It's a lack of the right style of confidence, shall we say. The other is that not everything's going to be value add. There's plenty of conversations where the only thing you're getting out of it is a neutral or slightly friendly networking chat. That's okay. It doesn't mean that every chat has to be ROI positive. It means you need to keep having chats that could be ROI positive, right? The idea is, you know that you're never going to hit the lottery every time, but to quote the Arizona lottery, you can't win if you don't play. Right? You can't participate in networking if you don't go say hi. You can't get value if you don't give value. And part of this is founders almost feel like they're owed something, right? Like, oh, they should have, they would have, they didn't. Who cares? This is part of moving forward, and a lot of things that founders have to learn to kind of contend with, that the journey's not going to be perfect. The journey is just a journey. And the founders that win are the ones that just keep going down the road, no matter the obstacles, no matter the inconveniences, no matter the frustrations. 10 people were, I've gone to events where I was ignored. I've gone to events where they told me I didn't belong. I've gone to events where I rode there on a scooter at 5 a.m, got rejected, had to ride a scooter back home, and then the scooter died in the ghetto. And then I had to push a scooter back home in the ghetto at like 6 a.m. And this is in the winter where I was living at the time. So it was pretty dark. Yeah, you don't feel like a winner, right? And you're certainly not winning, but that's necessary. That is a necessary part of the journey, not because you have to suffer, but because you have to be willing to go to events where you might fail in order to open the possibility of succeeding. And I wish I had it's all easy, but what I will say is it's all possible. And I will say that if you just keep moving forward and keep trying and keep working on these things, you can absolutely get better. And that's it. And let's see, we're about an hour 10 into our chat. So hopefully this gives you a good little masterclass in all things networking. Hopefully it raises some questions. And this is one of those networking, as I've said, and will continue to say, and I repeat it because it's a lot to remember. I'm not repeating, I promise, because I don't remember. I'm repeating it because I really need you to remember. This is art meets science, which means you have a lot of these strategies, and then you have to go in and learn how to apply them to you. Some of you are going to be more introverted. Some of you are going to be more extroverted. Some of you are going to have lots of things you can quote that are your knowledge. Some of you need to go build that knowledge. If any of this feels like a call out, then hear it as one. Not because I'm trying to call you out, but because, hey, you know what? I really am not that confident. Or, hey, I really think I come off as arrogant. I got to work on that, or else my business is going to suffer. And I have a choice. I can stay how I am, or I can work to be better for the sake of my goal. Hopefully this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.